You're part of the photographic community that gives me so much, so it's time to give back to all of you. It's my mission to inspire and pass on my knowledge, passion and skills. You can subscribe using the watermark button on the screen. Ring your bell to make your subscription count. Please stay to the end and comment. It's your feedback that keeps the channel going.
Okay, so we're about 10 miles from home, so I'm still within my local sort of area, and that's significant because some of the restrictions on lockdown have only just been lifted, and it is absolutely fantastic to be able to get out early in the morning back on the Northmore National Park. I mean, when you just look at that scene, just look at it, it's absolutely stunning and beautiful. But the reason I've come out today to this particular spot is, one, because of that, two, because it is probably my favourite spot on Northmore, and also because I want to do an update on a video that I did some time ago. And the reason for it is, you probably know yourselves as photographers, and if you're beginners you're certainly going to pick this up, that over time your own way of working changes and alters. So you modify the tools that you use, the software that you use, the camera that you use, and as you pick new things up, you change the way that you work. And also, software also develops and changes as well. So, if you're into landscape photography, this video's for you. If you're into doing any sort of focus stacking or anything, this is for you. If you're into Photoshop, Lightroom, or Helicon Focus, this is for you. And if you are thinking of getting into any of these things, then you'll get a lot of benefit from it as well. So today we're going to be going up to a waterfall or a small cascade, and we're going to be doing some focus stacking. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is my method of working in the field, and then I'm going to take those photographs back home into the computer and show you how I process them. Now this is the key bit, this is the bit that has changed. It's worth watching the filming bit as well, because there's some differences there, but I now use Helicon Focus slightly differently. Previously I had just loaded the images straight into Helicon Focus, then exported them, but now I've started using the Creative Cloud. That's Adobe's Creative Cloud. So now I can select my images inside Lightroom, export them straight into Helicon, and then export them back out as a raw file and pick up my normal workflow. So I'm going to see you down at the waterfall. Hopefully that's going to be just in a few minutes, because we're not that far away. I'm going to have a cup of coffee first, and then moving on from that we'll see how we go. So come with me guys, and let's see what we can get done. Okay, so we finally arrived at a location, and yeah, wow, fantastic. I'm going to have some coffee. Just checking the time, it's 6:30 in the morning, but as you can see it's quite a grey dull day today, and I don't really think that's going to clear for a good few hours anyway. There's going to be a number of compositions that I want to take today. I'm only going to show you one of them because I'm going to get right into that focus stacking in just a moment. But what I need to do first is have my coffee. I'm not going to bother showing you that because you're probably bored with me showing you me drinking coffee, but rest assured I'm still going to have my coffee. So I'm going to catch up with you in a minute, and that'll be when I set the camera up and we can go through my composition and how I'm going to do my focus stacking here in the field before we process the images in Helicon Focus when we get home. So, okay, I hope, I'm going to speak as loud as I can because I'm aware that it's really, really noisy. but I wanted to show you what the environment here was really like and bring you along this journey with me. Now I've decided on my composition, and I'll talk you through that using a picture in a minute. But basically what I'm doing now, and this is the first part of my process when I do a focus stack around water especially, is to actually decide what shutter speed that I need, that I actually want to use. The reason for that is I'm quite particular about how moving water looks in my pictures. So I'm going to take a number of different exposure brackets now to get my exposure right, and I'm also going to do that to get my shutter speed right. So once I've decided on where my exposure is, I'm going to start on the shutter speed. So I'm going to start on that now, and then when I'm ready to do the focus stacking, I'll show you what I'm doing then. So I'm starting at f5.6 at 20th of a second. In a minute when I take the pictures I'll put my shutter release on, but this is just for proving it out and seeing what I actually get. So I'm going to go over to live view so that I can actually see what the images look like as I do them. I can see looking in my histogram that's probably going to be overexposed. So we're going to come down to about, we're going to give ourselves f6.3 30th of a second to try it there. Now I can see in that picture I've got a little bit of overexposure. And to be honest, I'd probably like a slightly slower shutter speed. So I'm going to go up to f8. Uh, 20th of a second. That's pretty much as good as my exposure is going to get. Very bright along the bottom of the frame here. But I might even put a polarizing filter on just to cut down on those reflections just a little bit. So bear with me whilst I do that. Okay guys, so I've fitted the polarizing filter, and that's made a huge difference to controlling these highlights on the surface of the water. When I bring you around the other side and you can see the scene for yourself, you'll understand what I mean. But basically it just allows me to control these highlights, these reflections that we're getting, which are really quite nice, and I want them there, so I don't want to destroy them, but I need to control them. So that's given me, I've actually managed to now get a exposure of about 1/3, sorry, one and a third of a second, and at about f8 ISO 100 exposure meter on. I've fitted my cable release, so we're going to connect that up in a minute, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing the first exposure stack. Now I may do some with some bracketing involved, so that if I need to control some of the highlights a bit more, I've always got the option of doing a blend later on in the computer. So I'm going to move you around this side so I can talk to you from the back of the camera and talk you through what I'm actually doing when I'm doing the exposure stack. And I'm going to do it in live view rather than through the viewfinder, so I can show you on the back of the camera itself. Okay, so I'm not sure if you can see me or not in this picture, to be honest, but it's all about what's on the back of the camera that's important. So I'm going to point things out to you as I do them in live view, and then you should be able to see what it is I'm actually working on. Okay, so let's make this display a little bit less complex. Should have put this in, excuse me, I should have put this in autofocus before I did it, shouldn't I? Okay, so to simplify things a little bit for you, I've taken up on, well, I'll put it back on the information on for now, but look. Okay, so we can see what my exposure setting is, we can see what we're actually taking, and hopefully you can see the camera setup. So we're shooting at about f8, nearly 2 seconds. Mounted on the tripod, I've squared and leveled everything up. I'm using autofocus, and apart from that we're in full manual mode. And what I can do in live view is I can move this focusing point about a little bit and just use that to give you an idea of where I'm actually doing the focus stack. If we want to, we can zoom in on what we're focusing on just to look at it, and that'll give us an idea of what we're doing. What I'm going to do during the focus stack is I'm going to pick out various points at which I want to focus. Now with landscape photography you're quite lucky because you don't have to do like 50 stacks. With close-up photography, whole different ball game. So my first point is going to be down here on the foreground. My next point I'm probably going to take it over here. Third point here. Fourth point I would imagine on these rocks at the back, and I'll probably leave the background because I'm not too worried if the background does go off a little bit. But I'm pretty sure when I get out to there it won't be, so that should be enough. So let's bring this back down here to start with. We're going to use the back button focusing like I always do. So we just check our exposure. We can see by the exposure we can probably increase it a little bit. Plug the cable release in. Back button focus. There we are. First picture. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to move to the next point that I'm going to focus on in the frame, which is going to be over here. Once again, back button focusing. Zoom in on the frame. Take the picture. We're going to focus on this rock. Focus again. Take the picture. We're going to focus on that rock back there, look. Take the picture. So we can look at those in playback and just check that we've got everything that we want. I'm looking at this and I am pretty happy with what we've got there. Very happy. I think that's quite a nice composition. Okay, so what I would do now is I would possibly do another set at f5.6, maybe another set at f11, or maybe I'm just going to change the shutter speed and do them all at f8, so I'll do some bracketing. But as far as the focus stacking operation in the field goes, that's it guys, it's as easy as that. There is nothing more to it when you're doing landscape photography. So we're going to head back to the office, and all being well, I'll catch up with you and be able to show you exactly how we do the process in Helicon Focus, Adobe Lightroom, and getting those images into Photoshop. So I'll see you in the office. Okay, so that's the card in the computer, sort of uploading all the stuff. So what I'm going to be able to do next for you is open up Lightroom, and then when we're inside Lightroom I'm going to show you how to get those raw files into Helicon Focus and back from Helicon Focus into Lightroom. Now at the end of the session I will show you the final image, but the key to it is Helicon Focus today. So come with me, we're going to open up Lightroom now, and I'll see you inside there in a minute when it's loaded.
Okay, so let's, I've just started opening up Lightroom. In fact, it's opened already, so we've got it up on the screen for you. What I'm going to do is going to go through the basics of what I do in Lightroom first, and then we're going to pick the images out and move them across into Helicon Focus. So the first thing you'll see up on the screen is that I've already sort of highlighted and picked up some of the images, marking them 3, 4, 5 stars as per my sort of rating system. So I can pick the images that we're going to use very, very quickly. What I've also done, and I did this at the taking stage, and if you didn't pick up on it at the time, you'll see photographs of my hand on the screen as well. So the reason for that is when you're out in the field, it's so much easier when you get home if you can find the beginning and the end of a focus stack or a bracketing sequence or whatever it is that you've done. So every time you see my hand, you'll see a series of pictures and another photograph of my hand. And what that is the beginning and the end of that sequence. So the sequence which I've selected to use starts at 8261 and ends at 8264. Basically, that's the 4 pictures that we're going to be using for today. So the first thing to do to get them into Helicon Focus, and we're going to worry about processing the raw file later on, because this is the important bit about this. So we're going to highlight all 4 of them, which is just basically a shift and a click, and that'll highlight all 4 on the screen. We're then going to go into right click. Now, when we right click, it gives us a number of options. And there's options such as edit in, and photo merge. But right down here, we've got export. Now, it would be easy to jump into export Helicon Focus, but I'm going to do it slightly differently because I want to make sure that I'm exporting a raw file into Helicon, not a TIFF or a JPEG. So at the top of that menu, we can click on export. So if we click on export, it's going to bring me up with another screen. Now it's already selected Helicon Focus, but if it was on one of the others, you just move it down, you select Helicon Focus, and then you can start working on your image. You can give it a different name if you want. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to leave it as it is. Now if you look in here where it says file settings at the moment, you'll see that it's got TIFF written up on it. What we want to do is use that little drop down and pick up DNG. Now DNG is a digital negative format which Adobe introduced that basically maintains a raw file format. So it might come off your Canon, your Nikon, your Sony or whatever, but you can convert to DNG and retain all of that raw information. So we're going to export them into Helicon Focus as DNG files. So let's click on that now, and that will start that process then of actually opening them up inside Helicon Focus. Takes a little bit of time to do it, so luckily for you I can skip it. Okay, so it's finished doing that now. We've got the 4 images all in Helicon Focus ready for us to work on. Now, there's a few different bits and pieces that we're going to work on today. Not absolutely everything. I'm going to go through what is specific to what I use for getting my landscape pictures in and getting those worked on. And also I'm going to talk about the rendering, the retouching and the saving. Text and scale I never use. Before we go into any of those though, I want to come down to raw development settings, which is in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. So if I click on raw development settings, it brings up this other screen. Now I've used it previously before, so it's already got the raw in DNG out loader already set up. But if we actually click on this, it gives us a few other options. Built-in, DC raw loader, OS X raw converter, raw in, DNG out. Raw in, DNG out is exactly what we want. And the reason that we want that is so that when we process the images inside Helicon Focus and send them straight back into Lightroom, they're going to be there ready for us and we can actually edit those raw files. And that's the beauty of working in Lightroom and Helicon Focus at the same time. I'm going to leave the color space on Adobe RGB. There's other options that may suit you more, but you can use those later. So let's just get rid of that screen. So we've got the 4 images up here. Basically all we need to do now is render those. Okay, so it's got these 4 images back up on the screen. All we need to do now is actually go in and do the raw development of them themselves. There's 3 different ways to render. We can render in method A, weighted average, B, depth map, and C, pyramid. Experiment with them depending on your image, because different ones give different sort of effects. Method A is going to be fine for this picture, and it's what I use for 99% of my landscape images. I've never ever found a reason to have to worry about using radius or smoothing. We'll just use method A. So we're going to click that render button now, and it's going to go away and do the work for us. Once again, I'll speed this up in the video. Okay, so at last it's rendered those images for us. Now we can see 2 images up on the screen side by side. Now this is quite important. The left hand screen is showing the source images on the right hand side. So these are the 4 pictures that we used to create the render from. And the right hand side of the screen is showing the output from that render. Now the reason that's important is because you will get some situations where you'll get some ghosting on the screen. So you'll get some pictures where something's moved in the wind and you've taken the next picture and it's a slightly different position and the software doesn't know which one to take. It's okay to have some blurred elements in the frame because things do move in the wind just like they would with any other picture. What it's not okay to do is to have 3 branches or 2 branches side by side which have clearly ghosted because of what's happened. Now that's what's happened in the top top left hand of the picture. You can see some ghosting up here. Now we're going to zoom in a little bit just to make that possible for you. Okay, so there we are. Both of these pictures have zoomed in together for me. And incidentally, what it's actually showing is when I move this around on the screen, on the right hand side of the picture, you'll see that there's a file number and everything beside beside the cursor. What it's doing is it's telling us what particular file it's looking at. So we know that it's looking at P8A8264, which just happens to be that image up the top. So when we click on that one, it will then load P8A8264 in the left hand picture. Now if you look at this one, you'll notice that sure, there's a bit of motion, a bit of blur. It's not out of focus, you can tell that because everything around it's sharp. But it's a little bit of motion blur on it where this branch has moved in the breeze. But if you look at the right hand picture, you can see that on the render, there's a little bit of ghosting around some of these branches and some of them don't look quite right. Now we're able to correct that by going into retouching. So if we click on retouching, what will happen is it'll bring up a cursor with a circle around it. And basically what that circle is doing is that's a brush, it's clone stamp. So what we can do with the clone stamp on it, we can actually, and you'll see it as the mouse moves over it, it'll actually put those images in for us. Now I'm going to make this cursor quite a lot bigger because we can really do this whole area. So if we just click on that and drag it across, what it will do is it will paste that section of that file on top of here. Now that's part of the beauty of Helicon Focus because a lot of other software can't do that. So Helicon Focus allows you to take a particular part of a source file and copy it over the top of your rendered output. And what that means is where you get a little bit of ghosting, a little bit of movement, maybe boats on the water, maybe an insect's head, or something that you want to correct, which has got motion in it, you can quite easily do it. And that's exactly what we've done here. So if you have a look at this picture now, you'll see that yes, we've got that motion black in, but we've lost the ghosting. And that's the beauty of using this system. Now, as I said, we're not going to use text and scale, but we are going to use saving. So let's click on saving now because we're happy with the output. We've corrected any errors that we want to put in, and we just basically want to output this picture now back into Lightroom. So if we click on save, in the right hand side it comes up with different save options. You can export 3D models, animation, depth maps of it. You can publish it straight to the web or Facebook, or save a project file so you can work on it later on. But we're going to just click on save, and that's going to bring up another dialog box for us. Now this is the dialog that actually allows us to save it back into Lightroom itself as a DNG file. Now there are different options down here, TIFF, JPEG, etc. Now if we hadn't first loaded it in as a DNG, we would not have that DNG option there. That's why that is critical. You have to load them into Helicon Focus as a DNG file, but because it's there already, we can just click on it. It's lovely, it's selected it, and we click on save. And basically what it's going to do now is it's going to take that finished picture, save it back into Lightroom, where we can open it up and work on it as a raw file like we would with any of the others when we're not using it. So there we are back inside Lightroom itself. So if we go down to the bottom of the screen, we can see the images that we've done. We can open this one up. There's our image. We can open it up and develop, and we will have the image up there on the screen for us right away. So all I would do now is do some normal basic edits. Now I have my own sort of workflow. Everybody's got different workflows and ways they work differently inside Lightroom. But this isn't so much about that. This is more about this working with Helicon Focus with it. So I'm just going to apply my basic lens corrections that I always do every time. What I'm looking at is the histogram at the top, and I want to sort of smooth out the histogram. Now I know that we're going to have to set a white point in a minute, but we're going to bring the exposure up a little bit first just to centralize that histogram a bit. I know that we're going to have trouble with the highlights and the white, so we're going to bring the white point down a bit just to sort of get rid of some of that. The blacks, well, let's just move the blacks up. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the blacks where they are. I just like them just to see them clip a little bit and then back them off. Highlights, we're going to do a little bit of work on those just to get rid of the highlights in the top. That may allow us just to bring the white point up a bit, just to make some of the whites a little bit cleaner. I'll have a look. No, it's not. So that is my basic sort of thing. I'm not going to do anything with texture, clarity or anything else, because I'm going to turn this into a monochrome or black and white image, and I'm going to do that inside of my Nik Effects programs. So now all I have to do is go back to library, and then we basically right click on that image, and then we can edit it in Photoshop. We're going to do it as a smart object. That's another video for another day. Okay, so here we are inside of Photoshop. Now the image which I'm going to show you next is going to be basically a quick go through the layers and the processing steps that I use to create my finished image. So the image up on the screen at the moment is the one that we've just immediately imported from Lightroom itself. So the next one's going to be very slightly different. So what we've got here is the image which I've done to completion. So my first stage of it is to basically, I wanted to convert it into a black and white image. So I use Silver Effects Pro. So inside Lightroom, inside Photoshop, you can call up Silver Effects Pro as a smart filter, providing you call your image in as a smart object, which is why I do it. I've also got a standard sort of process where I apply a vignette to my images. Now I was fairly happy with this picture when it originally came out, but what I did was I've just applied a few vignettes to the edge of it, so that just darkens it and focuses your attention on the center of the image. Now what I've done is I've used some masks that you can see down here on the right hand side, and the reason I use these masks is because I want certain parts of those areas to stand out a bit more. So although I've darkened the top of the frame here, I wanted the tree to still be a bit brighter, and I wanted these rocks to be a bit brighter. And I'll explain for you why I wanted that when I put the final picture up later at the end. What I've also got here is what I've also done is I've lightened, kept some of the water a bit lighter on the bottom. I've also gone and lightened the branch on the left hand side over here, just to make sure that that's got some interest in that area as well. My final adjustment is I'll say my second to last adjustment, is a levels adjustment, just to bring a little bit more punch and kick to the image, and a final tweak of the curves just to add that boost of contrast that I wanted to get. And there we are with the finished picture. So as I said, let's put the finished picture up on the screen, and we'll have a quick chat and a talk over about why I've done the things that I've done. So here we have the finished picture up on the screen. I've made a few little other adjustments. I've removed some of the debris and marks from the bottom of the image, which ties up the foreground up a little bit. The picture is about using the flow of the water to take your eye up through, past the tree on the left hand side, past the rock with all the dark moss on it in the middle of the frame, and then your eyes drawn up towards the top of the picture, one by the flow of the water and also by those rocks that, if you remember, I said I kept a little bit lighter. So I hope you like the picture. Okay, so that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you found it useful and learned something, and maybe feel a bit inspired to go out and try it yourself, because that's what this channel is all about. If you did find it useful, then please leave a comment so I can make more content like it. Give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, just make sure you let me know why you're doing it. If you do enjoy the channel and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time. Get out there, get creative, and enjoy yourself.